Before you use an ATM again, there is something every Australian pensioner should understand, because cash access in this country is changing, and the biggest mistake is assuming every withdrawal works the way it did 5 or 10 years ago. For some older Australians, the problem is not that cash has disappeared overnight. It has not. The problem is more subtle. ATMs are becoming harder to find in some areas. Bank branches have reduced in many communities. Independent machines may charge fees. Daily cash withdrawal limits vary from bank to bank. And as Australia moves deeper into digital payments, pensioners who still rely on notes and coins are being forced to pay closer attention than ever before. Now, let me be very clear from the beginning. There is no special national rule saying pensioners can no longer withdraw cash, but there are very real changes around how Australians access cash, where they access it, and what they need to check before pressing that ATM screen. And if you do not understand those changes, you could face one of three problems. You may be charged a fee you did not expect, you may be unable to withdraw the amount you planned to take out, or you may discover, at the worst possible moment, that the ATM option you relied on is no longer as convenient, available, or straightforward as it once was. That is why today I want to walk you through exactly what pensioners should check before using an ATM in 2026, what has actually changed, what has not changed, and how to protect yourself from confusion, unnecessary fees, and preventable cash access problems. Let me begin with a situation many older Australians will recognize. Imagine a retired woman named Carol. She is 76 years old. She still prefers using cash for groceries, small purchases, cafe visits, and putting a little aside each week for household expenses. She knows how much she spends because she can physically see the money leaving her purse. It helps her budget. It gives her control. Every fortnight after her pension lands, Carol visits the same ATM she has used for years. She withdraws the same amount. She walks to the nearby supermarket. She does her shopping. It is part of her routine. Then one week she arrives and notices the ATM is gone. Not broken, gone. The bank branch nearby has already reduced its services, and the machine she depended on is no longer there. She finds another ATM in a shopping strip, but this one is not linked to her bank. She taps through quickly, thinking a withdrawal is a withdrawal, and only then notices a fee being added. It is not a huge amount in isolation, but that is not the point. The point is that she did not plan for it, she did not expect it, and for someone living carefully on a pension, small fees repeated often become real money over time. Now stop there, because this story captures the real shift. Cash itself has not vanished, but the experience of getting cash is changing. The Reserve Bank has said that older Australians and lower income households continue to use cash more often than many other groups. At the same time, access points for cash have been under pressure, with fewer bank branches and fewer bank operated ATMs than in the past. That creates a growing mismatch. The people who may still rely on cash the most are sometimes the people most affected when access becomes less convenient. That is the bigger picture. And pensioners feel it first because routine matters. When you are younger, an extra walk to another ATM, a switch to digital payment, or a withdrawal limit on a card may feel like a minor inconvenience. When you are older, use mobility aids, do not like banking apps, live regionally, or simply prefer the certainty of cash. That same change can feel like a real disruption to everyday life. Now, there is another point most people miss. The Australian government has moved to protect the ability to use cash for essential purchases. Regulations finalized for 2026 require fuel and grocery retailers to accept cash for essential items, with some exemptions for small businesses. That tells you something important. Cash still matters. It matters enough that policymakers have had to step in to preserve it for everyday essentials. But here is the critical difference. Being allowed to pay with cash is not the same as finding cash easily. You may still be able to use notes and coins at the supermarket. The harder question may be whether you can get those notes and coins conveniently, without an avoidable fee, without a rejected withdrawal, and without wasting time traveling to another location. That is why the issue is not just, can I use cash? The issue is, can I access cash smoothly when I need it? And that brings us to the first check pensioners should make before using an ATM. You need to know whether that ATM is likely to charge you a fee. Some banks and some ATM arrangements allow fee free withdrawals for their customers, but not every machine is the same, and MoneySmart specifically warns that people may be charged a fee when using an ATM that does not belong to their bank or a fee free network. The ATM screen should show the charge before you confirm the transaction, but many people are in a hurry and do not read carefully. That is the first avoidable mistake. A pensioner approaches a machine, enters the card, selects the withdrawal amount, and presses through the confirmation screens on autopilot. They are thinking about errands, parking, groceries, or getting back home. Then they see the account balance later and realize a small fee was added. Again, one fee may not feel life changing, but repeat it weekly or fortnightly, and it becomes a quiet tax on habit. If you withdraw cash 26 times a year and pay even a small fee each time, that is money leaving your account for no real benefit that matters, especially when the cost of food, electricity, medication, and insurance is already biting hard. Now, here is the pattern interrupt I want you to remember. Before you press confirm, read the ATM screen as if it is a contract, because in that moment, it is. If there is a fee, the machine may tell you before the withdrawal is processed. That is your chance to cancel and use a different ATM if one is nearby. It sounds obvious, but this is exactly the kind of small detail people overlook when they are moving through a familiar routine. The second check pensioners should make is their own bank's daily withdrawal limit. This is where many people get caught, especially if they need a larger amount of cash for a one off reason. Maybe you are paying a tradesperson who prefers cash. Maybe you are preparing for a market, a trip, or a family event. Maybe you are withdrawing extra because the nearest ATM is not convenient and you want to avoid repeat journeys. You may assume that if the money is in your account, you can simply take out whatever you want, but debit card ATM limits can stop that. The major banks set different daily cash withdrawal limits. Combank says its customers can change card withdrawal limits up to $2,000 per day through its banking channels. Westpac lists a default daily ATM cash withdrawal limit of $2,000 for customers. NAB says many of its ATMs allow withdrawals up to $2,000 per card per day. ANZ Plus lists a default daily limit of $2,500 per card for cash withdrawals. The numbers matter less than the principle. Your limit may not be the same as your neighbor's. Your limit may not be the same as it was years ago. And your card's daily limit may block a withdrawal even when your account balance is strong enough. That can feel embarrassing at the ATM. It can also create panic if you need the cash urgently. A rejected withdrawal does not always mean your account is empty. It may simply mean you hit a card or ATM limit. That is why the smart move is to check your own bank's withdrawal limit before you need a larger amount. Do it while you are calm, not when you are standing at a machine with people waiting behind you. Now, let me add another complication. The amount a bank allows you to withdraw in a day and the amount a particular ATM can physically dispense in one transaction are not always the same thing. Some machines have note count limits. Some dispense certain denominations. Some allow larger amounts in multiple transactions, subject to your daily limit. And some machines, especially outside major bank networks, may have their own practical restrictions. That means you could have a daily bank limit of one amount, but the machine in front of you may still not deliver it in one simple step. This matters if you are trying to make one larger withdrawal and have not used that machine before. Again, do not assume. Check. Now, here is the blunt truth. Most ATM frustration comes from assumptions, not from malice. People assume there will be no fee. They assume the withdrawal limit will be high enough. They assume the machine will dispense the amount they want. They assume the nearby ATM will still be there. They assume their card will work exactly as expected. Then, when one of those assumptions fails, they feel blindsided. But in 2026, the people who have the easiest time with cash access are often the ones who slow down by 10 seconds before acting. That small pause can save money and stress. Now, let me bring in a detail that is especially important for pensioners living outside big city centers. The Australian government has also been working on a broader cash distribution framework to strengthen how the cash system is regulated and help ensure people can continue accessing cash across the country. The very existence of that work tells you that maintaining cash access is now a policy concern, not just a personal banking preference. Why does that matter to you? Because it confirms the issue is real. Cash access is not some imaginary worry invented by people who dislike smartphones. It is a genuine part of the financial system, and keeping it available requires more attention than it used to. For pensioners, that means practical habits are changing. You may need to know where your bank's fee free ATMs are. You may need to keep a small list of reliable cash access options in your area. You may need to know whether your local supermarket or retailer offers cash out at the register. MoneySmart notes that many retailers offer cash out facilities, allowing customers to take out extra cash from a check or savings account while making a purchase with a debit card. That can be useful. But again, do not assume every retailer offers it, or that every counter operator is familiar with it, or that it will always suit the amount you want to withdraw. It is an option, not a guarantee. Now, there is another issue people do not think about until it becomes inconvenient. What if your regular ATM is temporarily out of cash? What if it is out of service? What if you rely on one machine in your suburb and that machine is unavailable on pension day, just when many people are making withdrawals? This is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to prepare you. The more cash access depends on fewer convenient points, the more valuable it becomes to have a backup plan. For pensioners, a backup plan might be knowing where the next nearest fee free ATM is, whether your bank's branch can still assist with cash, whether your local Australia Post outlet supports banking services for your institution, whether a supermarket cash out option is practical for small withdrawals, whether your debit card daily limit is set at a level that matches your usual needs. These are not dramatic actions, they are common sense checks. But in a changing banking environment, common sense has to become more deliberate. Now pause again, because here is the moment many viewers will ask: why is this especially important for pensioners? Young people use ATMs too. Of course they do, but pensioners are more likely to rely on cash for budgeting, more likely to be affected by reduced access in regional or suburban areas, and more likely to face frustration if the solution offered is simply use the app or pay digitally instead. The Reserve Bank's 2025 Consumer Payments Survey found that older Australians continued to use cash more often than many other demographic groups. That means this is not just a banking topic, it is a retirement dignity topic. People who built their financial lives around cash should not be mocked for wanting to continue using it. But they do need updated information because the system around them is not standing still. Now let us expose another blind spot. Some pensioners withdraw the same amount every fortnight without asking whether that habit still makes sense. Maybe the old ATM is gone and the replacement charges a fee. Maybe the bank branch nearby closed and the trip now costs time and transport. Maybe the supermarket cash out option could reduce the number of separate ATM trips. Maybe withdrawing slightly less often, where safe and appropriate, could reduce hassle and repeated fees. I am not telling you to change your personal budget method if it works. I am telling you to review the method against today's reality. Because routines that were efficient in 2016 may be less efficient in 2026, that does not mean you were wrong before. It means conditions have changed, and mature financial habits adapt. Now, there is one more warning I want to place clearly on the table before we go deeper. Do not confuse cash is protected for essential transactions with every business everywhere must accept cash in every situation. The government's 2026 cash acceptance policy applies to essential purchases such as groceries and fuel, with exemptions for some smaller businesses. It is not a blanket rule that every cafe, shop, and service provider must accept cash at all times. That matters because some viewers may hear cash mandate and assume the whole retail world has been forced back to cash. That is not accurate. The practical reality is more specific. If you depend on cash, it is wise to check both sides of the equation. Can I get the cash I need without unnecessary cost or difficulty? And will the place I plan to visit accept that cash? Those two questions now matter together. Cash access and cash acceptance are related, but not identical. Now let me return to Carol for a moment. After the ATM near her supermarket disappears, she does something that many people do. She adapts quietly. She uses another machine. She pays the fee once, then again, then again. She is not thrilled, but she thinks it is only a small amount. Then one day, her son asks why she is using that machine when a fee free option exists 2 streets away. Carol had no idea, nobody had pointed it out. She was not careless, she was simply operating with incomplete information. And that is exactly what this video is about. Not panic, not conspiracy, not pretending cash withdrawals have suddenly been banned. It is about incomplete information becoming expensive over time. Because when banking changes happen gradually, the people who lose money are often not the reckless ones. They are the loyal, routine driven customers who keep doing what worked before. Now, if you remember only 3 things from this opening part, remember these. First, cash still matters in Australia, especially for older and lower income households, and the government has taken steps to preserve its use for essential spending. Second, access to cash is not equally convenient everywhere, so pensioners should know their nearest reliable options instead of relying on habit alone. And third, before using an ATM, check the 3 details that matter most: the possible fee, your daily withdrawal limit, and whether that machine actually suits the amount you need. Those 3 checks sound simple, but they are the difference between acting with control and acting on autopilot. And that is exactly where the most expensive ATM mistake begins. Because the real cost is rarely one mistake. It is what happens when the mistake becomes a routine. A small ATM fee once may seem harmless. A rejected withdrawal once may seem annoying but forgettable. A missing local ATM may feel like bad luck. But when those things repeat, fortnight after fortnight, they slowly turn into a bigger problem. More wasted trips, more unnecessary charges, more stress around money that was meant to make life simpler. And that is why pensioners should build a simple cash withdrawal habit before they use the machine. First, check the ATM screen for any fee before confirming. Second, know your bank's daily withdrawal limit before you need a larger amount. Third, have at least one backup option for accessing cash nearby, whether that is another ATM, cash out at a retailer, or a bank linked service you trust. Fourth, if an ATM rejects your withdrawal, do not immediately assume the account is empty. Check whether the issue may be the limit, the machine, or the card. And fifth, never rush just because someone is standing behind you. Your money deserves 10 extra seconds of attention. That last point matters more than people admit. ATMs create pressure. There may be a line. You may feel hurried. You may not want to hold people up. So you tap through screens quickly, ignore details, and hope everything works out. But financial mistakes love urgency. If a fee appears, read it. If the amount is wrong, cancel it. If the machine feels suspicious, walk away. If someone offers help you did not ask for, be cautious. The goal is not paranoia. The goal is control. Now let me make another important point. Cash remains deeply practical for many older Australians because it helps with budgeting. When you can physically see the money in your purse, spending often feels more concrete. A $50 note leaving your hand can feel more real than a quick tap of a card. That is one reason cash still matters. For some pensioners, cash is not old fashioned, it is disciplined. It helps separate grocery money from bill money. It helps avoid accidental overspending. It helps people feel that they are still in charge of their daily decisions. So, this discussion is not about shaming anyone out of using cash. It is about making sure the way you access cash still works for you in today's banking environment. Because here is the truth: a good habit from the past can become an expensive habit in the present if the system around it changes and you refuse to notice. That is the whole message. You do not need to abandon cash. You need to update your cash routine. Now, there is one more mistake pensioners make, and it is easy to understand. They only think about cash access after they need it. They do not notice that a branch closed until they drive there. They do not know their ATM limit until a large withdrawal fails. They do not look for a fee free machine until they have already paid a fee several times. They do not check whether cash out is available until the ATM is out of service. That is reactive living. And retirement is already stressful enough without making basic banking more reactive than it needs to be. The better approach is to take a few minutes in advance and answer three very simple questions. Where is my most reliable local cash access point? What is the largest amount I can normally withdraw in a day? And what is my backup plan if the machine I usually use is unavailable? That is all. Three questions. But if you know the answers, you walk into the ATM with far less uncertainty. And uncertainty is what creates panic. Now let me turn to people who help older parents, grandparents, or relatives with day to day errands. Do not assume they know these changes are happening around them. They may still be using the same routine they built 10 years ago: same supermarket, same bank, same machine, same amount of cash, same day of the fortnight. Then one small change interrupts everything: a new fee, a missing ATM, a machine that no longer suits their needs, a card setting they have never reviewed, a branch that changed its hours. For a younger person, that may be a mild inconvenience. For an older person who depends on routine, it can feel destabilizing. So ask them gently, do you still use the same ATM? Does it ever charge you a fee? Do you know how much you can withdraw in one day? Do you have another option if that machine is unavailable? These are small questions with real value, and sometimes helping someone stay independent is not about taking over their finances. It is about helping them avoid small, preventable surprises. Now let us talk about safety for a moment, because access and security go together. If you are withdrawing cash, especially a larger amount, be mindful of your surroundings. Do not stand at the ATM distracted. Shield your PIN. Put your card and cash away before walking off. If something about the machine looks unusual or damaged, choose another one. And if a stranger becomes too eager to assist, step back and trust your instincts. Most ATM visits are routine, but routine should not become carelessness. Pensioners are often targeted precisely because scammers and opportunists assume they may be less confident with machines or more likely to accept help. So remember this: there is no shame in canceling a transaction and walking away if something does not feel right. That is not overreacting, that is good judgment. Now, I want to bring this whole issue back to one simple reality: Australia is not abandoning cash overnight. Pensioners can still use cash, and for many, it remains an important part of everyday life. But the path from your bank account to the notes in your hand is not as uniform as it once was. Different ATMs may mean different fees. Different banks may mean different limits. Different suburbs and towns may mean different levels of convenience. And different pensioners may need different strategies depending on mobility, transport, comfort with digital banking, and how often they rely on cash. That is why blanket advice fails. Just use a card, is not advice. Just go digital is not advice. Cash is dead is not advice. Those phrases ignore how real people actually live. The better advice is this: use the payment method that gives you control, but understand the changing rules and costs around it. If cash helps you budget, use cash wisely. If ATMs are part of your routine, know the details before you arrive. If a withdrawal pattern keeps creating fees or inconvenience, review it. If your local access changes, adapt quickly instead of letting frustration become the new normal. And if you are not sure whether your current cash routine still makes sense, check it now before the next pension day creates another surprise, because the most avoidable banking problem is the one you already had enough warning to prevent. Let me leave you with the key takeaway. Before using an ATM, pensioners should pause and check three things: whether there is a fee, whether their withdrawal amount fits their bank's daily limit, and whether they have a reliable backup if that machine is unavailable. That tiny pause can protect your money, it can protect your time, and it can protect your confidence. Cash is still useful. Cash is still important. But in 2026, using it well means being a little more alert than before. So do not walk up to the machine on autopilot. Read the screen, know your limit, have a backup, and make sure the habit that once helped you manage your money is still helping you now, not quietly costing you more than it should.